Welcome, everyone, to the Chill Like a Mother podcast.
Hi. So many of my clients have been dealing, and so much of society has been dealing with anxiety and stress and burnout and overwhelm. And that in itself becomes overwhelming. And it's this vicious cycle of how do I get out of this state that I'm in? And how do I get the support that's fitting, that's supportive, that's nourishing for me, that's safe for me?
I hear this so much from my clients and so many conversations on social media. How do I, how can I stop? When will it end? Is this just my life now? In reference to all of the things that you just said: anxiety, burnout, overwhelm, overstimulation. Um, and what I find the is the best way through that. It's not always the funnest way, but the most transformational way is getting to the root cause. And
Yes.
so, can you, Kelcey, in your describe who you are, what you do, and how you get to the root cause?
Yeah, so I was an esthetician by trade. If you knew me many moons ago, you would know that I was an esthetician. I owned a salon and a spa, and I became a mom, and I was working way too much. I was this person that we're talking about. I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I was burnt out. I was trying to do all the things, be a great mom, be a great business owner, and it was like I remember picturing myself just like all of these things I was trying to be. And when you get to a place like that, it's hard to focus on yourself. It's hard to even hear your inner voice or what you need. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's weird that I'm getting emotional about this. Um, you just wake up one day and think, how the hell did I get here? Like you said, how did
Mm.
I get here? And I was like, something needs to change. I remember I was having a panic attack in my camper on a July long weekend. And I was like, I'm dying. This is it. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Um, like this is it. This is not how I go out, like from a panic attack. And that was just like the wake up call that I needed. And shortly after that, I COVID hit, ironically, and I was forced to slow down. And at that point, I closed my business. My staff had to find something else. And it was almost the perfect opportunity for me to step back and reconnect with my family, reconnect with myself. And during that time, I connected with a hypnotherapist and was doing some work for her over social media. And I fell in love with what she was doing with clients. And what she did for me in 2 sessions changed my entire life. And I was like, I need to do this for other people. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And now I haven't looked back since. I'm a hypnosis practitioner. I work with people with anxiety and burnout and a similar story to that. And now we are here in the present day, and that's what I focus on. I'm obsessed with it. I'm so passionate about it. And it's all about root cause healing. And so it doesn't just have to be anxiety. It's whatever we're going through in that moment, there's a root cause for it. And I'm like a little investigator in our sessions. It's like, where did this start? What is causing
Mm.
this? And let's go there.
I have this metaphor that I work through with clients. So if this is the first podcast that you're consuming of mine, I'm a maternal expressive arts practitioner, and so I do one-on-one work and workshops and online learning for people. And the roots of expressive arts therapy is the mind-body connection. And so I have this metaphor that I like to use with people where the you are a tree, and the leaves and the branches and all of the things are all of the things that you've experienced. And let's just say the anxiety, the depression, the addiction, the whatever are the leaves. And the leaves keep dropping because these patterns or this frame of thought or the inner shit talk is like not serving you. And so the leaves keep dropping and you keep trying to keep the tree alive, right? Like you're doing all the right things. you're watering the tree, you're out in nature, like, and we're talking metaphorically now, like you are a human who gets out and takes the walks and does the thing for your mental health, right? And you're maybe even meditating or doing, like, you're actually doing the coping skills, all the
Yeah.
things that you read online, the coping skills, you're trying to talk kinder to yourself. But when the roots are not okay, and they are holding desperately onto something, whether that is a previous experience or an unsafe work environment or a partnership that's not aligned anymore. If the roots are not okay, the tree is not going to be okay.
Ooh, I got full body chills. I was like, that's a good one.
And so when when you're able to phrase it like that as the root cause, um, it can change the way that people think about it. Anxiety, addiction, depression, bad habits with air quotes.
Mhm.
They're not personality defects. They're rooted somewhere else down the line. And so I'm curious, Kelcey, in your practice, using hypnotherapy as the intervention, I use expressive arts therapy, you use hypnotherapy. Can you share with people who may not have any concept of what hypnotherapy is, or maybe even worse, I come across this a
Yeah.
lot with art, they have opinions about what hypnotherapy might be. Can you give us like a really easy to consume version of what hypnotherapy is and does?
Yeah. So when I say hypnosis, you're right. There's opinions, there's beliefs, there's like narratives about like, because we've all been to the bar where you are up on stage doing stupid shit or in the movies, like you are getting sleepy and I'm waving my hand like a
Yeah.
pendulum. It's not like that. And
And then I'm
so,
going to make you do the chicken dance
yeah.
involuntarily, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In a therapy setting, it is not like that, of course. We are there for your highest good to
Mhm.
get to the root cause. And so let me explain it this way. We have like of our mind in an easy way. We have our conscious thinking mind on the outside. This is our analytical, our willpower, our thought mind, right? It's our thinking ego mind. And then on the inside, we have our subconscious inner mind. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out with the little sadness, happy, joy, they're in the subconscious mind. I make my clients watch this movie.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so the subconscious mind is home to all of your core memories, your childhood experiences, your adult experiences, your imagination. And I imagine when you're doing art therapy, this is where you're tapping into the subconscious because it's your imagination, it's your emotion, it's your feeling part of the mind. It's like your higher mind, your entire being is there in the subconscious. And so as we become adults, there's a gatekeeper around the subconscious. So our beliefs and our programming as children gets
Mm,
locked in there at the age of 7. And whatever we were taught before the age of 7 gets kind of trapped in there. And that's where we operate from. This is like our operating system of our computer. And so
fascinating.
here we are trying to deal with the conscious mind, making change using willpower, but it doesn't work. It only lasts for so long.
Right.
And so, hypnosis, we just relax your physical body. It's like a guided meditation, visualization. It opens up the gatekeeper, and then we have access to your entire operating system. And we can be like, nope, delete that old file. That's old programming. That doesn't serve me. Delete, delete, delete. And then let's reprogram. Let's put positive things. Let's like imagine how our life gets to be. And just by
Mm,
thinking about, and this is where manifesting like there's so many things here that we could dive into, but from just explaining on an easy level, that's how hypnosis works. And you remember everything and you can talk, and it's the most amazing experience. But we can go back in hypnosis to childhood experiences or disruptions, or as we
mm,
call it, trauma sometimes. And even though you consciously don't remember it, your subconscious mind remembers everything from when you were in the womb. And maybe
yes.
even in a past life, if that's something you
Hmm.
believe in. Yeah, like I've had
Yeah.
clients go into past lives before and into the womb and as
Yes.
a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I think you said something interesting about do I have to live this way forever? Or what's wrong with me? Like we start
Mhm.
to say these things about ourselves that are shameful or guilt, and I'm gonna have to live this way forever, and why me? And
What's
it's
wrong with me? Why can't I? Why can't everybody
yeah.
else get it together or whatever? Yeah.
And typically, if you think about it, before the age of 7, you consciously don't remember that. So in your mind, you've just always been anxious. I'm just an anxious person. I hear this
Right.
all the time.
Yes.
You're not just an anxious person. You're a child. You were a child who has
Hmm.
been through so much that you haven't dealt with, you haven't
Hmm.
released. And hypnosis gives you an opportunity to go there so you can actually show up as the person that you really are, that you meant to
Hmm.
be.
Hmm. A question that I get a lot about trauma. Do people have to share their story with you? Because that's the number one question that I get is I don't want to have to regurgitate it verbally, especially for people who have tried to tell people their story. And especially with something that has happened really young, if they try to tell somebody about anything distressing and it wasn't met in the way that they needed it to be met, they have created then a narrative about sharing vulnerable things with people. And while I believe that some things do need to be aired, they literally need to be given breath outside of your body, like going from brain to mouth, like it needs to get there. In hypnosis, do they have to share their most distressing pieces with you?
Absolutely
Get the
not.
healing. Okay.
Not. So that what you said was really loaded because I've had so many clients and so many experiences with people where, and we'll just use the word trauma again in air
Yes.
quotes, right? Because I like to explain trauma as anything that disrupts the nervous system. So it
Yes.
doesn't have to be big, it can be small, like relatively small, but it's
Right.
anything that
Yeah.
disrupts the nervous system for people who don't know, right? Um, and so sometimes when you go to like a therapist or a family or whoever you're sharing your story with, when you like muster up the courage to share
Mhm.
your story and you're not met the way that you need, it's almost like you are disrupting yourself. So now you're dealing
Yes.
with another disruption. And people don't talk about that like we talk about creating a safe space.
Yeah.
But are we really creating safe spaces? And so that's a whole other
That's a
topic, but
whole
that
nother
just
thing. Yeah.
yeah. But it's very interesting. But with hypnosis, I'm doing most of the talking and you're just using your
Right.
imagination as I guide you along. And so essentially what a session would feel like is I would say, okay, subconscious mind, body, bring up the feeling that you've been experiencing that we
Mm.
really need to resolve today. And then say it's anxiety, typically it's tight chest, heavy chest, if it's sexual violence, it's a screaming in the head. Like
Mm.
there's patterns, right, that show up in the body. But we then say, okay, let's follow that heavy chest feeling back. When was the very first time that you felt this? And
Mm.
the subconscious mind will go back, 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 back. I have like full
Mhm.
goosebumps because it's like, oh, so
Mhm.
powerful. It'll go back and maybe it's okay. I'm at the age of 5. And all I ask is, are you inside or outside? Are you alone or with
Mm.
someone? How old are you? How is 5-year-old feeling? And then it's like, what can you give 5-year-old to make her feel better? What does 5-year-old need in this moment that she never had? And you can
Mhm.
see how powerful this becomes because we're healing ourselves. We're going back and helping ourselves. There's no external person coming to save us. It's
Right.
us coming to save us. And whew, it is so powerful. And sometimes people share what's happening, but I don't need to know. I just don't. It's for you and however whatever your healing looks like and whatever you feel inclined to share is perfect and beautiful and wonderful, and that's all that you need to heal. So that was a long-winded answer for your
I like
long-winded
I liked I
question.
liked the long-winded answer. I liked
Yeah.
like how you walked through that, like the visual of that.
Yeah.
Um, I had like a full body,
Yeah.
like sensory, visceral experience as you were saying that. And I can I can imagine for your clients how freeing it is to be guided in such a comforting way.
Yeah.
And
Really.
you know, to speak a little bit to what you said about safe space is the people who we tell can only hold space for us the way that they hold space for themselves. And so if 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 you're listening and you have found yourself in a situation where people have not held you, they have not responded in the way that you've needed, unfortunately, sometimes those people are not the people who are skilled to hold your story. I think we want people to be able to hold our stories or to be able to respond in the kind and compassionate way that we believe humanity has the capacity to be. And then when we're not met with that, like you said, it adds that layer, it adds another layer of disruption or narrative or shame. Um, I've been on the receiving end of many stories where women have finally gotten the courage to tell somebody how they feel about motherhood. And they're met with many versions of toxic positivity messaging where you have a healthy baby, you have this, you're of privilege, all of those things. And the unrest or the feelings from that can't be logicked away.
Yeah.
It's the feeling is coming up for a reason. And in my experience, the soft, brutal truth that I would wish everybody to have in their locked up little box is that the breadcrumbs of that unrest that they feel in motherhood likely go back further. And um, ironically, I listened to a podcast this morning by Mel Robbins talking about anxiety and the root cause. And the neuroscientist who she was interviewing was talking about younger self work, inner child. And feel free to roll your eyes for those who are listening. Because when we hear inner child, I know we all have narratives about it. We all have messaging and the woo and the, all those things. But really what Kelcey and I are talking about and what Mel Robbins and this neuroscientist is talking about is that you are not just an anxious person. You are not defective in some way. You're not the messaging around guilt or shame or anger. Um, those messages were rooted a long time ago.
Yeah.
Does everything start and begin with childhood trauma? No. Or childhood adverse experiences or childhood distress? No, we definitely have experiences later on in life that can also add and compact some of those narratives. And I also want to take a moment and mention this because this has been coming up a lot. And Kelcey, maybe we can have just a short dialogue about it, is the pressure on mothers because of how much we are uncovering about childhood trauma. And then the pressure that mothers feel to perform and perfect and show up selflessly, constantly to avoid any potential childhood trauma for their children because they don't want their kids going to therapy talking about the way that they are currently talking about their parents in therapy.
Yeah.
And that it can really compound the narrative that I must be constantly showing up,
Yeah.
constantly on, constantly hypervigilant about preventing trauma in the next generation.
Yeah. I want to share something really quick about that because especially the work I do in being a mother, I'm like the things that people share with me that was the disruption because sometimes it's not because let me backtrack. People will come to me and say, I'm an anxious person, but I had a wonderful childhood. I didn't have
Yes.
anything traumatic happen to me. So I think this is just how I am. It can be something that is seemingly small, that is not deemed as a big T trauma. Like it can be something like I've had clients come out of a session and be like, seriously, that is the cause of my
That was
anxiety.
the
Are
reason.
you joking? Like, this is stupid, like,
Yeah.
and so, yes, as a mother, you start to say, I never want my kids to feel that way or the way that I was. And you're right, you become hyper vigilant. But I had a client, and I share this story often, and she allows me to. But she came to me because she was a mother who was feeling this exact way and overwhelmed, and everything has to be perfect. And it was exhausting and burning her out. And we went back, and it was because her mom was such a perfect mom in every single way.
Mm,
And then because her mom was so perfect, it put pressure on her to be
of course it did.
perfect.
Of
And
course it
so
did.
there's no winning. There's no winning. And so I share that story because you could be the most perfect, loving, amazing mother, and
Mm.
your child will still pick up programming. So we need to just take a
Oh,
break and do the best we can, you know? And so I love sharing that story because it's really powerful in its own way
it
with a bit of
really,
humor.
yes, it really is. And this is like a really great segue to a personal story of mine. Um, I'm neurodivergent, and my child is also neurodivergent. And in the thick of the pandemic, we were really butting heads. I didn't know what he needed. He was too young to tell me what he needed, and I was in this hypervigilant cycle. And I said to him, as an only child who was raised with one parent, I felt alone in my feelings a lot. And I was very careful to say that wasn't because Grammy wasn't there. She was there. She was doing the best. And so that was my feeling. I felt alone. And so I think that you need me to be there. I want to show up for you, and I want to make sure that you're not going through this alone. And you know what he said to me? He was 6 at the time. He said to me, I could see how you would feel that way, but I would like you to leave me alone right now. And I was like, okay, I will leave you alone. And then a couple of days later, because kids have a very short attention span for difficult conversations like this, a couple of days later, I circled back and I said, remember that conversation we had a few days ago about how you asked me to leave you alone? I said, I always want you to be able to ask me for what you need. So I was being like, I was causing distress for him. That conversation completely changed my view on how I was trying to meet my own need
Mhm.
by inserting myself in his feelings and not just holding the space for it, right? And as a 6-year-old, he was able to say, I actually need you to back off. And the
Yeah.
inner work in that is that I then had to be okay with the backing off and notice my own narrative around what that might mean for me
Yeah.
being the mother.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, when we get into motherhood and doing things that we are guilty or shameful of, reminding ourselves that we are doing the best that we can with the
Yes.
knowledge that we have in this moment. It's always easy to look back in hindsight when you have more
Oh,
information,
totally.
right? It would be easy to
Yeah.
win the lottery with in hindsight, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Um, but it's like, if we are feeling activated by, like, kids have a beautiful way of holding up this mirror to us and being like, here's your
Uh-huh.
shit,
Yes.
it's not even their shit, it's our shit
It's
that's being activated by their, am I allowed to say shit this
you
many
are
times on your
100%.
podcast? But it's like they hold up this mirror and then we become this angry person or this
Yes.
overwhelmed. Like, let's be real. Like, I've gotten angry at my son, but it's never
Yes.
actually about him. It's about the environment, or it's something within me that needs healing, something
Yes.
from my childhood or my wherever on the timeline. But it's I always say, when you're activated or triggered in quotations, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't always love that word, activated. It's an opportunity to say, what
Mhm.
am I feeling? Have I
Mhm.
felt this way before? Or what is this really about?
Yes. And in my work, I call them like body signals, right? Like your
Oh,
body has given you a signal before your conscious mind, the thinking mind, the overthinking mind has even had time to process it, right? So when we've been given a body signal, whether that's all the physical feelings that you even mentioned when people are going through the hypnosis, right? Like clenching hands, heavy chest, jittery feet, all of those body signals are coming in. And as an adult, we are really good at keeping that locked up, Like, just
Oh,
like
yeah.
you said about the subconscious and how kind of like that's determined before 7, and then it's like locked in, is that we are really good as adults at ignoring our needs and or those body signals that come in about feelings or situations or um, even those like whole body yes or whole body no moments, you know.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many stories I've been on the receiving end of like, I knew I didn't want to, but I did it anyway. You know, for our listeners today, I just want to take a moment and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're washing the dishes or driving or walking the dog, or, you know, your kids are screaming and you're doing laundry, I just want you to take a moment and really breathe in and breathe out and say to yourself, I am doing the best I can with the tools and the resources that I know about right now. Because what Kelcey and I are talking about is can be viewed as deep work, the transformation work, the things that get you from where you are stuck and into the life where you want to be. I do that through expressive arts therapy. Kelcey does that through hypnosis. And there are many other ways that people find healing and find relief. And if you happen to be a person who's listened this far and have found themselves saying like, well, that must be nice, I don't have access to those resources, or um, I'm not in a place that I can do that kind of work. If you can believe, even with a tablespoon of certainty, that you are doing the best that you can right now with the tools that you have, that reprogramming can rewire even the harshest of inner critics. And the work that you see other people doing, or narratives that you might have about other people being able to not be anxious or not be overwhelmed or set boundaries, that's not necessarily coming natural for them. I think in the world that we have access to a lot of people a lot of the time, it can feel like everybody else has more skills or more resources or more, or it comes naturally for them. And things like authenticity and healing trauma or anxiety or depression, grief, mourning, all of those things are intentional practices. They're not just happening for people.
Yeah. And if you think everyone has it figured out, don't. Like I do this for a living and I will go and do something and I'm like,
Oh,
that didn't
yeah.
feel it. We
Yeah.
just were again doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. And if you can set that intention for yourself, it really eliminates the shame and the
Mhm.
guilt. And then you can start to see things more clearly because those things cloud the root. They cloud
Yes.
the roots. They poison the roots of your tree.
Mhm.
And that's a wrap for this conversation. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the Chill Like a Mother podcast. If you had an aha moment or found yourself saying, oh yeah, me too, maybe share this podcast with somebody who might appreciate it, a friend, maybe in your mom group or on Facebook. Episodes come out every Sunday to help you with those Sunday scaries. And subscribe so that you never miss an episode and you can carry me, Kayla, around in your back pocket. If you liked this episode, please leave us a rating or a review. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to look at it behind the scenes and get exclusive ways to be more chill as a mom, follow me on Instagram at chill.likeamother. All of the mentionables are linked in the show notes, and always, this is not a replacement for professional advice, though we are professionals, we're not your professional, though we do encourage you to seek whatever professional supports you may need in your life. Have a relatively chill day, and catch you in the next episode.